Well, good morning, everyone. Happy Sunday to you, and welcome to week 4. We're at the halfway point, which is always fabulous. I hope you enjoyed week three's lessons, learning more about the brain and learning that it's really a myth that people are left brained or right brained. That each brain has the ability to do each other's functions, but it's more like looking at it as the right brain is boss of the right brain functions, and the left brain is boss of the left brain functions, but they can switch if they have to in an emergency. So that's a better way to look at it. And I noticed on the discussion board that some of you talked about that, about talking about being mathematical, logical, or being creative, being musical. But remember, we swim in between. We swim in between. And although people may look at me and think that because I'm an artist or a musician or those types of things, that I might be so-called right-brained. Um, I enjoy those functions. My right brain controls those functions, but I still love the functions related to left brain, calculating in my head, working on mathematical problems, being logical, those types of things. They used to call that, in the myth, they used to call that the golden brain, the middle brain. But now, as we know more about brain function, and that we can do more serious technological studies related to the brain, we see more how things operate. So, something to consider. Although it's always fun to do the left brain, right brain test. This week, you're going to be listening to a TED Talk by Peter Doolittle. And I absolutely love to hear him speak. I think you're going to love to hear him speak too. He uses humor as a device to pull people in when he's talking about brain function. So I'm really looking forward to what you have to say about that and his connection to working memory, teaching us and talking to us about working memory. And you'll note when he does his working memory experiment with the audience and he asks them to pull words. Let's see if I can remember: tree, highway, mirror, Saturn, and electrodes. And he will it's a test that they do. It's a cognitive test they do specifically for dementia, Alzheimer's. When I went through my MRI that I told you about, they did the same thing to me. Couldn't remember the words at the time. And what's interesting about that is that, as I told you before, it was a struggle for me, and that made things worse because I have a high working memory capacity. And he lists in there, when you listen to him, he talks about people with high working memory capacities tend to be strong storytellers, tend to do well at standardized tests, whether that matters to you or not. They tend to test well. Writing ability, usually really good writers, and reasoning at high levels, quick reasoning. And when your working memory is tapped, that's when you do the things like, where did I park my car? Or, the one that I was talking to you about before, where you have your phone in your hand and you're on your phone and you're going, where's my phone? Where's my phone? Where's my phone? So I think that you'll find working memory very, very interesting. It is like we have these little computers in our brains. And when working memory is not working for us, then it can become problematic, of course. So I think you'll really enjoy what he has to say. The other things that you're looking at this week are ways to improve students' memories in the classroom. And there's a little clip that gives you some suggestions about what you might want to try, or what you might see things on there that you've already tried. But I wanted to talk just briefly about the short article, 11 Ways to Improve a Kid's Memories, because I'm sure some of you are already doing these things in class, and they're really easy things to do. So the first one is encourage questions. Encourage questions. When you encourage questions from anybody, you're making them be engaged. And so there's a funny point in Peter Doolittle's video, and it's happened to me, it's happened to all of us, where we're having a conversation with somebody and maybe we're not really listening, and then all of a sudden they ask us a question and we're like, oh wait, I have to answer a question. He brings that up and it always makes me laugh. So you want to make sure that you encourage questions because it's helping them to have a deeper comprehension and to start thinking about, they have to think about it. They have to problem solve, okay? Um, Create rhymes and songs. This is a big one. And I'm sure a lot of you are already doing this, no matter what level you're teaching or what subject you're teaching. But for those of you that do use music and rhyme, you know that when you teach students like that, it's a device that you'll remember it probably forever. Okay. So think about Ray Charles writing 50 Nifty United States. I mean, that's how I memorized the states as a child, and I can still rattle them off alphabetically quite quickly from that song. When I taught middle school, I taught ancient world history many years ago, and I crafted every unit into a song about the ancient Egyptians or the ancient Romans. And to this day, I've been teaching almost 30 years now, and I will have students that run into me, at Target with their children, and from across the store, I'll hear somebody like singing one of the songs or the chants, and I'm like, oh my gosh, there it is. So that's a great thing to do. And if you're not comfortable making up your own songs or chants, there's so many online that you can look for different levels, even all the way through college. Anatomy students, my daughter, she's a biology major. There were like chemistry songs and biology songs for everything when she was going through college. So make sure you take a look at that. Make learning exciting. Now, this tip they give you here, they say encourage your child's enthusiasm of learning by taking a trip to the library to check out books or videos on different subjects. Videos. You can also visit a museum or art gallery if your child is interested in the material. Well, that's nice, but that doesn't always work out for us in the classroom. Getting students excited about learning is just showing them how excited you are about specific things. That makes a huge impact. I taught American history literature for years, and I loved Edgar Allan Poe's work. And I found his story to be really interesting, and I found the 1800s to be really interesting. And I was so excited about it that the kids became excited about it. And once again, to this day, when I'm on Instagram or Facebook or those, I have students that will still send me funny memes or information about Edgar Allan Poe because I was excited about it. And so, therefore, they were excited about it. So, it can be as simple as that instead of having to travel somewhere, although that's lovely too if you can make it happen. Um, Using visual aids, when I just rattled off those words to you from Peter Doolittle, I didn't look them up before I made this video. I remember them. And the reason why I remember them is because the very first time I watched that video and he said, I want you to remember these words, I did what I often do is I connect them to something. Okay. And sometimes teachers do this. Like they'll give each student a nickname so that student's connected to a nickname. Or they'll do a visual icebreaker where a student will say, Deidre, flower, and then you forever think of that association. So when I wanted to remember those 5 words, that's what I did. So tree, of course, I always associate with my last name, Wood. Highway, I associate with a song that I like with the word highway in it. Mirror, I said to myself, look in the mirror, and it stuck. Saturn, when he said it, I circled my finger and went, Saturn, the planet. And then electrodes, I had to have like electrodes for a heart thing. And I went, electrodes. I just did this to myself. Okay. But it's how I remember how I make meaning from those words. And students can do the same thing in different ways. And that's one of the things when you're looking at the science of drawing and those types of things. A lot of times adults will think that if a student's doodling, if they're doodling, that they're not paying attention. And actually, when somebody's drawing what you're talking about, they're more in the room than somebody who's, oftentimes not. So I think you're going to find that really interesting. And don't take it personal if somebody's doodling. They're really listening to what you're doing most of the time. They're involved. They're there. They're engaged. Creating mind maps, making a list of keywords for an idea or subject. Ask your child to teach you. I do this a lot with technology with the kids. I ask them to teach me something with technology. Or can you teach me? I do it this way. Can you teach me a quicker way? And with yearbook, when I was doing yearbook, I was teaching them Photoshop, but many of them, but they're a new generation, so they were using all the shortcut tools. I was doing all of this old fashioned clicking from the way that I learned computers in my day and age, and they were like, command this, command that, command this, and they were showing me what they liked to command and how they liked to do it, and so it lets them be the expert, and that hits what we were talking about before, that reward system. They're being rewarded. They're feeling good about themselves, for being the teacher in the situation. But then it's also, when you're allowing a student to teach you, you're encouraging them. You're encouraging them to be an expert on the subject. Use all the senses. We see this a lot in science classes: the sight, touch, sound, reading aloud. They love that. They love when you read aloud to them, conversations, props, and then breaking information into smaller chunks. And you know that from being in college. We oftentimes break things into smaller chunks to learn. So, as I said before, I'm sure many of you are already doing a lot of these things, but remember that one of the things that we really have to make sure that we are doing as educators is we are taught to be academic experts. We are taught to be the correct one, the smart one, the person that knows it all in the room. That's great. But the problem is, if you don't allow yourself to be vulnerable, to take information in, to reflect, to assess, and say, what am I doing in my class right now that is working for my students, and what could I try? Maybe a failure, but it's worth a try, right? What could I try? What could I do differently? Let me open my mind to the possibilities of being flexible and fluid. Because teaching, if we go back to left brain and right brain, uh, it's logical, but it's also a craft. It's an art, and you want to be skilled in this art. And for my math teachers in here, I think you're really going to appreciate too when Peter Doolittle talks about practice, because a lot of times people will be like, why are they just practicing this again and again and again? Or my music teachers in here, why are they practicing this again and again and again? Well, because practice is a good thing. Practice is a good thing. Repetition is a good thing. That's how any musician gets muscle memory, to where if I don't pick up the guitar for a month, I may be a little rusty, but that muscle memory is going to come right back and I'm going to be able to play. Practice. Same with mathematics. And for my math teachers in here, I'm a big believer in, I do calculations in my head all the time. And my husband will be like, "Oh, use the calculator, write it down on paper." And I'm like, "No, practicing, practicing, keeping that fresh." So think about those things this week. Okay, let me just pull these aside. Okay, give me just a minute to close all these windows. Okay. And then just the last thing to remember is your assignment this week is the information processing model analogy. And if you click on the directions, make sure you click on the directions. If you click on the directions and you read through it, it's going to tell you specifically what I'm looking for and how many points each thing is worth. Okay. And then if you scroll down to the bottom of the directions, you're going to see where it says student sample, information processing model analogy. And you go ahead and click on that, and you're not going to be able to see the whole thing because you're not going to be able to see the student's entire work. But it's going to give you an idea of how to set up the title page and the structure and how I want you to structure the analogy. Okay? And if you have any questions about it, you can go ahead and contact me. But it is really self-explanatory. But at the same time, if you have a question, ask. It's important, okay? It's important to allow yourself to be vulnerable and learn and ask questions and make mistakes and get messy and all of those things. So I hope you're enjoying Brain Based, and I hope you have a wonderful week. And don't forget you have discussion boards as well. Once again, self-explanatory, but if you need me, just contact me and let me know. Okay, I'm almost at 15 minutes. Have a great week. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.